All right, all eyes remain on President Trump, who now heads to Brussels later today, where he'll come face-to-face with NATO leaders after putting them on notice.
I'll see NATO, and I'm going to tell NATO, you got to start paying your bills. The United States is not going to take care of everything.
So is the president right? Joining us now is former UK Independence Party leader and Fox News contributor Nigel Farage. Nigel, thank you so much for being with us this morning from sunny Bermuda, to say the least.
Sounds nice.
So the president has been very tough on our NATO allies, trying to get them to cough up more money on defense spending. Why do you think the president is right to be tough on this issue?
Well, the president's not being tough on the issue. The president is merely quoting the rules of the club. To be part of NATO, you've got to spend 2% of your GDP on defence. The fact is there are 29 members of NATO and only 6 of them are actually paying the membership fee. So the argument is, why should America protect all these countries if they're not prepared to make a fair contribution? I think it's a wholly reasonable argument, but it's set, you see, against the background of the European Union wants to build its own army, its own European army, and Mr. Juncker, who heads the European Commission, is saying you only need to pay 1%. So what you're going to hear in the next 48 hours are various European leaders saying Trump is threatening the security of people in Europe. The truth is, it's the ambitions of the European project that's doing it. And I believe that the president should be very firm indeed.
You know, it's crazy when you look at the numbers, because you see the United States at about 3.5%. You guys hit the mark at 2.12. We've both got pretty big economies. So we're talking about, on a big scale, 3.5% and 2%. And then you've got all these smaller countries who are just getting the deal of a lifetime, paying maybe 1% of a very tiny GDP to join a club that gets you the backing of militaries that are worth trillions of dollars. I mean, what a sweet deal. And how could anybody not call them out, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's freeloading, isn't it? But it's not just the small European countries that are cheating. Germany, you know, 80 million people, the biggest country in Europe, and Germany is only paying 1.2%. And I think that President Trump and Angela Merkel need to have a very frank discussion about that. Otherwise, as I say, European countries are freeloading off American taxpayers.
Now, some say that President Trump isn't going to want to ruffle any feathers at this NATO meeting because he's meeting with Vladimir Putin very, very soon. What do you think about that?
Well, look, you know, the fact that he's meeting Putin must be a good thing. Whether we like Putin or not, the whole point about Trump's strategy is you go out there, you meet people, you talk to people, maybe, just maybe, you build a personal relationship, and that makes things better. There are many in Europe, particularly in Eastern Europe, who are still very paranoid about Putin and about Russia. I think the truth of it is it's the Ukraine. It's that whole issue of the Ukraine and the Crimea that has led to such a terrible deterioration of conditions. But I do think the one thing that the president needs to do is he needs to get a public assurance from Putin that Russia will not meddle in British or American elections in the future. And that, I think, is very important.
Absolutely. Everybody looking for that. Going to your country now, a bit of turmoil in England as a couple of Brexiters, one your buddy, Boris Johnson, just quit his job yesterday. And everybody's saying now Theresa May's job could be in jeopardy. Your system works much different than the United States. Explain to us how this all works with Theresa May and why she's at risk at this point.
Well, she took over after the referendum as Prime Minister. You know, we voted to leave the European Union. She herself had supported the Remain side. So it was a very odd choice, in a way, for her to become the Prime Minister. She promised from day one she would deliver the kind of Brexit people had voted for. And what she presented to her cabinet on Friday, frankly, amounted to a betrayal of many of the things that had been promised, even in her own general election manifesto. So there's an issue. Boris Johnson and David Davis have resigned. I believe they're right to do so. I'm now of the view that if she stays as Prime Minister, we will not get the Brexit we voted for. We will not be able to sign a trade deal with America and other big countries around the world. So what it now needs, it needs 48 Conservative members of Parliament to sign a letter of no confidence, and that would then trigger a big debate within the Conservative Party about whether she can continue or not. My guess right now, my guess is that the tide is now moving against her. And I think there's little chance that she'll survive more than a few weeks.
And that's what you want. You would love that, right? You'd love her out.
I would love her to go. I think she has been utterly duplicitous, dishonest with the British public over Brexit. And I'll be honest with you, I think she's the worst Prime Minister we've had in my entire lifetime.
And President Trump also heading to London very soon. So he's going to be heading there at a very tense time in your country. Nigel, thank you so much for being with us this morning. We appreciate it.